Hi, welcome to a special episode of Automation Ladies, in which we are recording in a rare lull, I guess, for us Automation Ladies over here. We're taking a little bit of a break, recovering from OT Skatacon, our first community event. But how timely then that we made room for this conversation right now, because Allie and I, around this time last year, had what we called our first Automation Ladies leadership team offsite, which actually just happened to be because we met up in Folsom, California to attend ICC, Inductive Automation Ignition Community Conference, which inspired us in a lot of ways to want to do some sort of event of our own that had a community feeling to it. We really loved ICC. It's the first place where we met one of our guests today, Christine Lee. She introduced us when we did a talk about the sort of origin story of Automation Ladies. So we're joined by Christine's colleague, Mara, today as well. So we just look forward to having a fun conversation, learning a little bit more about their backgrounds, what they've got going on, what's coming up. And then Allie is here as well today.
Hi, everyone. Love Ignition.
We'd love to hear that. A shout out to Inductive Automation for sponsoring both Automation Ladies and OT Skatacon. I had given this invite out to Christine Lee well before they sponsored the show. But I just, give a great shout out to our sponsorship and marketing coordinator, now Emily, and from the Susan Wilson from the Inductive Automation side for kind of helping us corral the time and the place and getting these ladies on for us. So thank you so much for joining us. It is August now, a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks before ICC. This episode is actually not going to air until later this year during season 5. So I just like to make the listeners aware in case there's like time things we discuss that will be weird. But yeah, we're in the middle of like trade show season. Things are busy. So I really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you so much. Welcome, Christine and Mara.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you guys suggested coming on together because it's fun that we get to have a conversation, not just with one person, but as we discussed a little bit before we started recording, you guys have, had different tenures. Mara's been at Inductive Automation a lot longer. Christine just joined, what was it, last year or 2 years ago now?
Yeah, last year. Mara is actually my direct manager.
Oh, very cool. So we also have a manager relationship to explore here. So that's pretty cool. And then Allie and I, let's not get into our relationship. I don't know who's my boss right now. I'm woefully underperforming with all kinds of counseling. So, Mara, I'll start with you. And our first question, can you just introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners? And really the main thing that we kind of want to dig into to start our journey of curiosity about you is to learn how the heck did you get into industrial automation? And tell us as much as you are willing about your journey to get to where you are today.
So my name is Mara Pillott. I'm thrilled to be here and I'm thrilled to see all of you. So I got into automation in 2010. I didn't even know what a PLC was. I had no idea this kind of thing existed. I was simply looking for a job. I had a background in computer science. I've been doing some, front end, user interfaces with databases, but I didn't have I didn't have really any manufacturing experience. I saw this job ad. I downloaded the Ignition software before I went to the interview and I thought, wow, this is really cool. You can see all these things in a factory. And I had watched this show called How It's Made and I had no idea.
That's what we do. The people
Yeah.
Of course we do.
Yeah. So I went to this interview and, back then it was small. It was just the integration piece of what is today Inductive Automation. I was interviewed by Wendy Lynn Heckman, who is one of the co-founders. And we just immediately clicked. And I was wearing like a suit like you did. And she said, well, you're going to need to wear some jeans and like boots and you're going to be going to factories. And so she thought, man, is this person too girly? Like, I really like her. Does she understand where she's going? And I did. I was thrilled. So, really, that's how I got here. I just started learning Ignition and they told me the first thing I was going to do was go out to this winery and I was going to be working in a construction trailer with with some guys, and this was the world, right? They were controls engineers and PLC engineers and electrical engineers, and they were almost all guys. And I got along with him great. We're still friends this day. I'm not going to mention names, but somebody knows who he is. And what I found out later was, my boss went and told the guys that, a girl was going to be working in the trailer with them, and they were going to have to clean up their language and their jokes a little bit. And one of them said, "That's mean we can't fart in the trailer anymore." And to this day, I bring it up whenever I see that engineer of how I ruined
you saved all those guys from those farts.
I probably did.
No, my question is though, did you say yes, no, you have to stop farting in the trailer? Or did you say, well, girls fart too, why can't I fart in the trailer? And
no farting. No farting.
No, I feel that's
everybody's fart banned.
So we are not having this here, but I'll run into him at ICC this year, and I will embarrass him again with that story.
That's pretty awesome. You're like, you're not going to fart ban me, are you?
Yes.
You're like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
About me.
That actually reminds me, in 1995, my college that I went to started letting women in, and the water usage tripled because the men started taking showers.
Of course they did.
Because there's chicks in their classes now. They're like, I guess I should not smell like this. Like the savage that I am.
I'm just imagining whoever was looking at that usage data and what intent they inferred from that before they realized that it's a social thing. When you think of it from a building management perspective or an energy efficiency.
Are we losing all this water?
I'll get that into our water treatment demo. Number of women on premises.
It's related.
Well, that's hilarious. I will say, the industry is what it is, and I think we're all getting better, and that's part of what we're trying to do at Automation Ladies is just open the door or open the window. I don't know, show more people through the window that industrial automation exists. Like you said, you didn't even know that it was really.
That's pretty creepy that we're looking through windows.
What you got there?
Analogy. Well, but at ICC, it was at a college campus. This is last year that we attended ICC Elevate. And I remember thinking, wow, there's so many more men's restrooms. Where are the women's restrooms? And then I realized it's because you've rebranded the many of the women's restrooms as men's, because why would you have a huge line at the men's and then all these empty women's restrooms everywhere?
Yeah.
But I think restrooms and showers are one way to that really, it's an objective indicator, right?
Change too. I used to have the women's restroom all to myself, and that's not true anymore.
And so one of the possible benefits that's disappearing as we bring more women into the industry is the wide open restrooms.
Yeah. But I love it. I love how the face of this industry has changed. I just really can't say that I worked with any guys that I didn't like. Like I said, some of them are lifelong friends. I just felt like it would be nice to have a woman around once in a while. And we always had women in leadership. And sometimes I worked with, women who ran businesses, but not necessarily in the engineering side, right? And all of a sudden I look around and there's all these women that are here. And even on my team, we have 3 women on my team. We have myself, we have Christine, and we have Anna, who used to work in our dev. And that's great. I don't feel so alone anymore.
It is nice. And I didn't know what I was missing because I just like you I never had a problem working with men, or mostly men, or being one of the only women in the room. And it has its, few downsides and things like that. But I was kind of used to that, I think. And again, taking the more technical path, you're used to that from school, even. It didn't bother me. But then I met Allie and I was like, oh, it actually is really nice.
Yeah.
Well, girls that A, you can relate to about that, but then B, are also into, the automation stuff. So Christine, I'll let you go next then. You want to tell us, how did you get into this? And I guess what time frame was that for you?
So I have a similar trajectory with Mara as well. So I also stumbled into the automation industry on accident. a stroke of luck. So I switched from biology major pre-med to computer science going into my junior year. So I would just like packed in all the classes. And by senior year, I was like, I need an internship or a job lined up. So panic applied anything that I could find in LinkedIn. And I found an internship for automation engineer. I was like, I have no idea what this is. Like, are you talking about automation, like code automating? So applied and got an interview, and I was eventually hired. And like Mara said, what the heck is a PLC? Like, what's with all these like
An
acronyms?
HMI. Yeah.
What is SCADA? I mean, it was to the point because I was pure programming at the point. It was to the point where like, can you help me with a wire pull, like cable pulls? Do you want me to like physically pull a cable? But anyway, so stumbled into that realm, and one of the first things that I had to do as an intern was go on Inductive University
Okay.
and learn about ignition. And I graduated in 2020, so peak COVID and peak lockdown. So started my career in this industry fully remote. And when lockdowns were lifted, I got to go on site with my steel tip boot, my hard hat, my flashy high vis vest. My first job site was a bourbon distillery, and I learned a lot on site, and I really got the taste, like being a systems integrator, what that entails, both off-site and on-site. And I really just fell in love with, automation as a whole, but I really, really fell in love with the HMI SCADA aspect because I will say I'm a visual person. So being able to design what the operators will interact on a daily basis, keeping people in mind and not necessarily only data was really fascinating to me.
Were you good at like presentations when you were little?
Why?
Because usually like HMI people, like they want, like they're just like presenters, like at heart. So like you used to make like boards when you were a kid and like PowerPoint presentations, and you're just like obsessed about the font and like the colors and the border and the pictures and the ratios.
I'm like a presentation person, but I've always been really into crafts and arts. So
Okay.
I think it was another way for me to like tap into that creative side of me beyond like programming or greens. You gotta make this presentable and actually nice to look at and not burn your eyes. But also had a stroke of luck with landing a job at IA and as an application engineer. And I just thoroughly love my job. And I just tapping into that women in leadership and also just like mentorship roles at my systems integrator role. There was a phenomenal engineer who was a woman. I looked up to her and I still do. Her name is Vicky. Hi, Vicky, if you're listening to this, but she was incredible. And it was really good to like get into this industry that I was like, I don't know anything. I really don't have that confidence of like, oh, here's someone who's really tried and tested and true and just very seasoned veteran who is so incredible in her work. And she's thriving on site and she's well respected. And it felt like a good environment for me because I know they're like just having that figure was just enough for me. And also joining IA, I mean, Mara's my manager. She was my manager from day one. There's another female figure that I looked up to and I still look up to. She's my like go-to if I have any questions. Oh my God. Yeah. If I have any questions and even just that, that reassurance that if I am not having a good day or if I'm not sure of myself, like I could have someone to turn to. And I think just even looking around me in IA in general, there's a female figure or like just a good source of like mentorship everywhere.
Yeah. I'd say you, in a way, lucked out into early in your career, falling into companies that have cultures that like intentionally train people and tried to hire diverse people. I know, one of the things that initially made us excited when we met people from Gray, your previous, systems integration, hope it's okay to say, friends as well. And Sam James from Gray Solutions made the music for Automation Ladies, by the way, in case you didn't know.
What a wonderful person. Sam.
He is a wonderful person. And he came up to us at Automate and he just, he explained as well that like he's worked at places in the industry that don't feel culturally like a place that he wants to support, and that he really, sees that change in the industry. And so I find that I kind of end up latching onto people that give me that feeling, that's what they're interested in. That's type of like, they want to foster this community and make it more accessible to the next generation, whatever that is. But like, definitely not every company in the industry gives me those vibes. And many people end up working for some of the ones that are, I guess maybe less intentional about that. And when I found early in my career, I started with a company called Keyence. They train new people out of college, so you don't have to have the experience. But many of the other vendors in the industry, they don't really have a training program. So they just expect to hire people that already have the industry experience, which can make it harder to be more diverse, because then you're limited to the talent pool that has like already come up in the industry, versus opening yourself up and being willing to train newer engineers. It is an investment, certainly. But I think that's also kind of what you have to look at if you really want to, diversify your teams and make it more open. Then you have to be willing to take on some training as well aspects, and bring in people either from that are earlier on in their career, or just even from like, let's say, a industry like software engineering. That's, I think, is a huge opportunity for our industry today, because so many of the big tech companies are laying off and stuff like that. And we really need more people in our industry. Is how do we attract more people from the, pure software? And it looks like we are doing a decent job. I just saw, contributed to a LinkedIn post today. Somebody in my network was like, hey, I have a friend that's a front-end developer that's interested in learning all about this PLC and HMI. You get into industrial automation. What resources do you have for someone? So I guess that would be a question. Do you guys have some tips for fellow computer science graduates or engineers that maybe have been in more traditional software engineering roles that don't, deal with any kind of controls? What would you say to hype them up to get them to come check out controls engineering or the related disciplines, right? SCADA or whatever.
Oh gosh. So I think I kind of empathize with that whole ordeal, because I was coming in from like a pure programming perspective, also without any just industrial or just career experience, period. What really helped me was someone taking a chance on me, which, like I said, stroke of luck. I will always be grateful for a person. His name's Alex, and he really trusted in me to just grow in the role. And I wasn't the only one that he trusted. Also, another fellow engineer from my old job, Greg, his name's Brad. He was also a pure computer science person. He was actually kind of like, quote unquote, guinea pig. That sounds really bad, but it's really not. But he was the first person that Alex really trusted to be like, okay, he's just a pure programmer. I believe he was doing also front end things before landing a job as an automation engineer. That Alex said, okay, let's see how it works. Taking up your software engineer and just seeing how they grow into an automation controls engineer. And honestly, Brad is one of the best engineers that I know. So like, did a really good job. Awesome. I like to think that I'm at least a decent engineer too, in this field. But
You're
yeah,
pretty
it
good,
really helps
Christine.
thank you. But it really helps to have, like people really take a chance on you, but also take a chance on yourself too. Have that confidence to be like, I don't know this. I really don't, but I want to learn and I'm going to keep learning. And if it's hard, I will ask questions. I don't want, there's no such thing as a stupid question. So definitely taking a chance on yourself to really watch yourself grow in a very new role. I mean, whenever I had, I started off like having a pretty bad imposter syndrome, and I'll be honest, like it's still not. I don't think I will be like completely over an imposter syndrome because there's always something to learn. There's always something new. But definitely trusting in myself to learn and to be confident in my work, and also being open to any criticisms or any help, that if someone's like, hey, it looks like I can help you with X, and Z, can I help you? Or even just reaching out and say, I'm not sure if I know this 100% or understand this 100%. Can you help me? So yeah, that was a really long-winded answer.
No, I wonder
understand that.
if Gen Z, because I think are you Gen Z?
Yes, yeah.
So
I think
I wonder if Gen Z is just like I love, like you just said, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. I don't know this. And I don't know that even millennials ever were just like super open about that. And as much as we were at least understanding that people don't know everything, like we weren't talking about it like that. And that openness is just like freaking helpful. Because then you're just not starting, because there was a lot of like pride, I think, that I always saw. And I was just like, no one wanted to admit that they didn't know anything, especially like coming out of school. They're like, I have a bachelor's degree, so I know everything. And it's like, dude, you don't know anything. And, just that being able to just be like, I don't know anything. And I felt like I knew that I didn't know anything, but it wasn't something I could even talk about. And I didn't feel comfortable being like, hey, going to my, people around me and being like, I don't know what I'm doing. And now we can do that. And I feel like that's just going to help us so much, because we can just be freaking honest that we don't know what's going on, because that's the fastest way to the actual answer, is to say it now and then be like, and the people that do know, they're like, okay, well, at least you're not lying to me, or you're not being boastful or whatever, because that's actually what stopped a lot of people's progress is, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then you don't know what you're doing. And then you just go hide or like research, and you're like, just tell them you suck and you're going to be fine. Like, they're going to help you. Oh my God. If you could just let your freaking pride go, you will skyrocket to the damn moon.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to get a little tangent here, and then we'll bring this back tomorrow. But, a lot of things are changing in our world, and AI is one of those big things that's here, and we're all wondering how it's going to affect us. I feel like at this point, the same thing, or you could call it Google. Like, basic information is available everywhere. There's tutorials and all kinds of things now. What is going to separate someone is their context around the information, right? Their experience with a certain thing. Like, I can look up a basic how-to on YouTube now. I don't need to pay a person for a basic. What I need is the context as to which video to use, when, or what to do if it doesn't work. Those sorts of things. And I think, and I don't know if this is a shift. Like, I know in our business, I'm starting to see it more and more in my company and Allie's company, that we actually want people to just play to their strengths. And we want to be more honest about when they struggle. And so that, we can actually construct higher performing teams where we're not forcing someone to act on a weakness consistently. And then we pair up people with strengths and weaknesses to help each other, right? And we move forward a lot quicker that way than everyone pretending that they're at a 10 or at an 8 and all of the things. And then,
I know everything.
Yeah. And I feel like when I was graduating from business school, and this was not that long ago, but like 15 years ago, I was very much told, make sure that you have all of these things on your resume, even if they weren't even true about me. Like, detail oriented and, these things that were just like, this is what you need to have. And you also must wear pantyhose and no pants. I literally was told when I graduated that I couldn't go to a job interview without wearing a skirt suit and pantyhose. I had to borrow money from my family to go buy a skirt suit at Ann Taylor, because they don't sell them in like regular stores.
This is in our damn lifetime.
Yeah. Like I said, I went to my interview in Inductive Automation in a suit, right? And it was a skirt suit. And as soon as you said pantyhose, it just brought back my mother, like, no, that is not appropriate. You have to have the proper undergarments. Like, have you ever owned a pair of pantyhose? I mean, this is...
No.
Right?
No. Hell no.
I remember my dad too. He had this executive assistant who turned into he had a small business, and she of course ended up like running the damn thing. But she ended up working for my dad because she was like, I interviewed, and she like one job she didn't get because she wore pants. And again, this was like when I was in high school. So I was just like, oh, I must wear the suit, the skirt. But it has nothing to do with your ability to carry out the job. Other than just maybe making you uncomfortable. But yeah, I would love to hear from your perspective. What has changed, I think, for the better, if you want to comment, since you started? And obviously now you interview people. Is there anything that from your perspective, like you used to expect, and now you're like, wait, I shouldn't expect that from people? What sort of changes have you seen in
I mean, I'm fairly new to management, and I was lucky because the previous manager of our team is now the manager of our division, and I do get mentorship from him. Thank you, Kent Melville. Shout out, and I'd like my credit later. But I think as we've grown as a company too, I mean, my whole history here is we were so small when I started at Inductive Automation. So I got to see that, and I got to see the industry change. And I got to see the technology grow. And I think also how we treat people grow. When I started, we didn't have these resources, right? So we took someone like me and we sent them off to a winery and we didn't see them for months. And we kind of laughed like, oh, sink or swim, right? You'll either make it or you won't. And we don't treat new hires like that now. And that is so much for the better. We send them to Inductive University if they haven't already, gone through that process. Mostly we're looking for that experience, but it's hard to find people with that experience. So I think a big thing we look for is the ability to learn your team player skills. Can you communicate? Will you tell us you don't know something, right? Because it's going to change all the time. I don't need you to know everything when you get here. I need you to be part of a team, to be willing to contribute. You can't, I see people like that from time to time that they believe they know everything. So they're never going to learn something, right? And we don't have that on our team because we can't. So we're constantly having to pick things up. And we do have more mentorship now. And it's also important to us when we hire somebody that they understands a little bit of the history of our company, not just the software and the products that we make, but, how we interact with the market, how we like to be pretty open, like Inductive University is free. Why? Because we want people to learn it, right? We want more people to know about it. And I love that. I love watching all of this change. And the whole thing it just feels so much more dynamic and modern than it felt, back in the day when it was just like, you've got your SCADA system and you've got like one server in your factory and maybe you have a few thousand tags. And now it's this, you can have servers all over the world and you've got the Internet of Things and we're going to start looking at AI. I mean, that's a huge shift.
Definitely, I think an area that a curious person willing to learn will not get bored.
Yeah. That's why I'm still here. I never get bored.
Yeah, I want to add that, I love that there are companies like Inductive Automation that are big enough, because I have a small company, and big enough that they can properly mentor their people so they don't 100% throw them at sink or swim. But I do believe that there's some balance there that is the perfect balance. And so I feel that me and you, Mara, we were thrown into sink or swim abusively, possibly. And I don't know, I said yes when every other technician said absolutely not. And so I think that I did a lot of things in my job where I was it was abusive, I think, because I was like, I'm going to try it for myself. And so I want to meet somewhere halfway because I don't want my people to eat it like that. I don't want to leave them like that 100% to their own, even though I believe in them. I absolutely believe in them, but I'm like, I can help you. And mentorship is extremely important part of that. And so it's how much do we let them sink? Because I do swear that part of who I am and what I've been able to do is related to when I was drowning and what I was able to do to get out of it. And so I don't want to take it 100% away, but that was too much. And that's unnecessary and almost it costs companies money. There's got to be a middle ground where it's we will still pay for you to mess up, but you shouldn't be 100% no support, no anything, totally on yourself. And that's what a lot of us that's how a lot of us were made. And the fact that we're still here is like our own grit and our own passion, because everyone else is just like, this is abusive, I'm leaving. And they did. And actually, that's part of why women are actually mostly gone. Even though there's actually more graduates, ladies in our field, like STEM fields, than the ones that actually stay in the industry. Like, they're not the same numbers, and there's a reason. And it's because they're like, I don't have to fight this. Why? And like, I felt like I needed to prove myself. And I feel like a lot of women did that same thing. We're like, we're going to prove ourselves. And we did. And it's just like, at this point, I'm like, I don't feel like there's anything to prove. Like, can we go back to doing this in a healthy way? Because that wasn't healthy. And I don't even feel like that was even worth proving. Like, there's nothing to prove. Women can do all of your weird field jobs. The end. Next. There's nothing to argue. Like, yeah.
This podcast is brought to you with support from Inductive Automation, celebrating more than 20 years of digital transformation for industrial automation. Ignition by Inductive Automation comes packed with innovative features for the modern control system, like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, mobile-first flexibility, and an intuitive built-in design environment. The Ignition platform provides the tools your enterprise needs to build HMI, SCADA, IIoT, MES, and digital transformation solutions on the plant floor, at the edge, and in the cloud. Ignition supports operations of any size or industry, and it's used by 61% of the Fortune 100. See all that Ignition has to offer and download it for free at inductiveautomation.com.
No, it is a balance, right? Because I did too. Like, yeah, I learned from I'm just going to stick it out. If some, controls engineer is yelling no and shoving at my screen and telling me that's
no
all
sleep. Yeah.
Right?
No sleep.
I'm going to do it.
No validation. You're told you're the worst engineer they've ever seen.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't have it that bad, but there were some abusive customers out there, though, for sure.
Definitely, customers will abuse you. They actually expect to pay.
Great.
They feel like they're paying to abuse you.
Yeah. I did have,
but you don't get paid for the actual abuse itself. You just get paid by the company, but you don't get like the abuse tax.
Yeah.
And your company gets all the tax for the abuse. They're like, oh, we love you guys. I just get to super be mean to all of your workers.
Yeah, that was out there. And I don't know how much of that still goes on, right? Because I'm a little more insulated now. I'm inside here and we're doing internal projects and I get to give my team a different experience. And I certainly hope that's changing out there. I'm not out there, but yeah, I hear you. There were customers out there that were they were just in toxic environments. Their own employees weren't getting treated well either.
And I do try to shine a light on that. Just like, we don't have to paint the entire industry with a broad brush. There are changes that the entire industry needs, but then there's companies that are more ahead or better than others. And like, it pains me when I see a woman in particular, but anybody leave the industry because of a bad employer, when really they just needed a better company to work for, but in the industry.
Sure.
I actually I kind of left the industry and I ended up in a different role and I missed it. I missed the automation. I missed the physical machinery. I missed pneumatics and motors and when I was in more like software and data and supply chain. So to me, there was something about the industry that called me back. But then I had a really, at that point, I was old enough and I had done some other things and I had learned a bit more about myself and my self-worth. And that just because even if I was in sales, I didn't have to just smile and nod at everything and take the insults or whatever. And I haven't had any of those problems since I came back kind of with that attitude. But I also chose a company to work for specifically now. Where I looked at the culture and I was like, I want to make sure that it's actually a place I want to work. And I know the industry can be hard and the work out there is tough, but it's way tougher if you don't have a team at home, quote unquote, at your company or in your, your leadership that then you can lean on. I think it's a lot easier to deal with the crappy customers when you can go lean on someone like your mentor or somebody at your own organization. But if you have a crappy customer and then a crappy manager, that's where I think it's not worth it. Don't stick it out. Find another employer in the space because there are plenty of companies that don't want to see you drown like that or think that it's okay. But I like Allie. I learned a lot in my being thrown into the fire kind of situations. So I'm also always, it's hard to say oh, we should just eliminate all of the problems we had for the younger generation so that they don't have to deal with any of it. But then at the same time, it's like, well, how are they going to learn some of that then? But it's like, how do you strike the balance? I think that's a tough one, really. You got to, because you have to let people eventually like sink or swim or try to be out there and not be completely coddled and supported with everything.
Learn from your mistakes. I mean, if I look back at some
Yeah.
of the first projects I hope they're gone. I hope somebody deleted them forever because I know I made terrible mistakes and I didn't know. But you have to learn from that.
Yeah, there's no way to make a real engineer without I call it eating shit sandwiches. But really it just means like you don't know what to do and you're actually like, freaked out. And then you just make a decision and then you just are accountable for your decision and you go to your management and you're like, this is what I decided to do in this case and what do you think? And be accountable for it.
Sure. And maybe that's some of the things that we could mentor. I know sometimes, when we were working with customers, we had to get things done very quickly on a timeline. And, you want to be able to try every solution to get the most optimal solution. And sometimes you don't have that luxury and you just have to pick something. And that's definitely something as a manager I've run into is encouraging my people to say, like, I understand you want to explore everything, but you might just have to pick something and go with it, right? And we might just not know and be able to explore every last corner. And I like that I can explain some of those things, right? And sometimes they know more technical things than I do because they just went out and learned something, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of know the framework and the backgrounds and the kind of overall, like, how do we keep this thing on course better than they do?
That's why I think we make such a better combo as like if we look at these generational differences, because there are a lot more of them now technologically than let's say we had between generations in the past. But that and Allie can maybe speak to this a little bit better, but the way that she structures a lot of the work at her company is there are subject matter experts that have a lot more experience. And then they're paired with the younger engineers to be a resource. And the younger engineers have resources and think of things that, somebody that has been out in the field for, 15, 20 years maybe wouldn't. So it goes both ways. Like you can learn both ways. And my CEO, Roman, brings up a good point. Sometimes he had a project at Apple where his engineers were telling him that they should do something that they were like, no, that's impossible. You can't do it. And they totally proved him wrong. Like it was possible. But the technology wasn't around back when he was doing it that would have made it possible. So sometimes
For
you have
sure.
to, that combo of working together. And I think that just speaks to like diversity on teams in general. You have a lot more, chance of innovation and success when you have those different perspectives, like filling in the gap. Allie, do you want to talk any more about that whole like mentoring and SME stuff? I'm sorry to have brought up an example from your business.
No, I mean, it everything that I do, it comes from like survival / circumstance, right? Like I'm bootstrapped. I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay, $150,000 salaries and 401k and insurance to like the cream of the crop engineers. I had to go be like, well, how am I going to do this? I'm good, right? I'm good. But what can I afford to even help me? And how do I move from me being the only one that can do anything to that? And I realized that like I am a subject matter expert, but I could hire on a contract basis other subject matter experts so that I didn't have to do that stuff all the time, so that I could refocus because I am decent at sales. I'm an engineer myself and like I shied away super hard. I didn't want anything to do with sales or marketing. And then I ended up being good at it. And I'm like, well, now what? So now I want to bring my company work. And I can't do that if I'm doing the subject, if I'm the subject matter expert. And so that was a way to decouple some of the things that I am good at and just let them just do that. So I could bring in veterans and they give them a better rate. Like if they do the engineering themselves, that's not SME. SME is someone who is overseeing. It's an engineering manager that's overseeing the work of another engineer, and those engineers are doing the work. But I have built into the way that I quote, the work, that there's an engineering SME that's going to review that. And that obviously the hours are there's a ratio, right? Like if there's 10 engineering hours, you don't need 10 SME hours. It's like there's 10, maybe you need 2 to 5 SME hours to review that if the engineer spent 10. So at the same time, I can give, a regular engineering work to some of these subject matter experts, but, I can only bill so much. And so I think I want to find a way to train the next generation. And the first place I ever saw it, I worked in aerosol machinery for a second. And the guy who let me take over, what he was doing, because he was like, I'm not traveling, I refuse. He was giving mechanical, like they're not even controls people. He was giving mechanical technicians, team viewer and a laptop and showing them how to connect that laptop to the PLC. And he was getting his own technicians who were traveling anyway, because they were putting the machine together, to let him in and do the IO checkout and the functional checkout with the technician when the controls engineer's not even there. And he was doing this successfully. And I was like, oh shit, there's something here that he's doing that there's so many veteran controls people that are ready to just like not travel ever again. But they would totally sit in their living room and be like, yes, Johnny, now do this, or whoever, Jamal, I don't care. Like, tell the technician what to do, or get like a team viewer and be like, okay, let's get on WhatsApp or FaceApp or whatever the hell you guys call it, the shit from Apple, and be like, FaceTime. Yeah, let's get on FaceTime and you show me the problem that you're seeing, and then you explain that to me, and I'm looking at the PLC already. So I'm in the PLC, you tell me what you physically see, and I swear to God, they can close these projects out. And so that is the future, I think. And I think that, there's going to be a lot more people that don't want to travel, and they're not going to travel because I'm not going to make them. And I think that there's going to be a lot more people that are young and they're ready to travel because it's the first part of their life, and they're ready to, give the first 10 years or whatever before they settle down to these, companies. And I think that there's a pairing here that's just natural. And if you can figure out how to not make everyone angry and the customer, like, there's a gold mine to be had. And we are trying our luck at that.
Yeah, it is a challenge. Go ahead, Nikki. Sorry.
Okay, please, Mara.
I think we're going to have to get creative like that, because I hear this a lot, right? We are losing these controls engineers and we need more. And we are going to have to get creative. And as soon as you said that, I thought of the panic, right? That somebody, but I can't have you can't control things if you're outside the network, but you do have somebody in place right there physically, right? You're doing this,
Yeah, you can unplug them. Yes.
Yeah. The panic.
They're just not a programmer.
Yeah. But we're going to have some creative solutions to get through this, because we are losing these people. And I hope that we do see more automation and more trades in schools, because we're losing everybody. We're losing the electricians in these plants, and, the guys that can get the pumps working again, as well as
all the highest bidders. Like, that's the only ones who get what they want is if you pay top dollar. Everybody else, little companies, are screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we could just get that, along with this industrial automation in schools, I mean, I can't solve everything. At least we are trying to get our software into schools and teach people that this career exists, right? I mean, like you were saying, you're getting people with more of a traditional software engineering background. And it's so well suited. I did things like, I need to move these student records from here to here. And, this curriculum, planning screen needs to be up for this teacher, for a school district. It's not that different, right? I need to make sure that your business process moves smoothly through this. And somebody with a software background with some kind of understanding of processes can do that, maybe without having that knowledge. So if we could just make people more aware that this is here, and make people more aware that maybe you should learn to program a PLC, or, get into this factory automation, I would love to see that change in our educational system.
So would we. And it's actually interesting that you mentioned, we talked a little bit earlier, you guys are making a push to get your software into schools. At what level, just college level, community college level, or what level do you think is appropriate to start getting at least these ideas in front of kids?
I think elementary school is appropriate, right? I know you do work with a company that makes some kits for kids. I think any level is appropriate. I would like to see it in high school.
Yeah.
Why not? High schoolers can learn about electrical boards and
Honestly, I think kids
processes.
can learn a lot earlier than that. I think, and it's an interesting, I guess, maybe observation. I grew up in Iceland and I moved to the US in middle school. And one of the things that I thought was like a stark difference was how little kids are trusted with here in terms of like, they expect you not to be able to handle anything or do anything. And part of that is maybe our society here is very litigious, whatever reason. But I remember I took wood shop in 4th grade, got to use like a large saw and all kinds of tools that here, like when I was in middle school, they were like, oh no, you have to wait until high school to even touch that. And I'm like, why? I did that when I was like 8.
Wow.
And, sewing, right? A lot of these things, cooking, we took cooking classes, with a real stove. And I felt like I came here and I was kind of treated like, oh no, you can't possibly do any of these things. They're not safe. They're not for you. And I think we kind of kept all these industrial things hidden from kids because somehow they're not appropriate and not safe, which is, obviously you don't want to put industrial electronics or whatever into like kids' hands and just say like, go for it. But the idea is if you teach them how to do it responsibly or get them started somehow, then, there's no reason why they can't learn. It requires a lot more oversight, right? And
Sure.
if you give a kid a power tool or whatever, but I think we woefully underestimate how much kids are capable of. And that may be a function of the kind of, school system, which was devised a very long time ago, which made it to where we didn't have a level of like fidelity or technology to be able to assess individual skills. So it was like, what fits the average? What fits the whole? What is something that everyone can do? And now, we're in 2024. We have the ability to use software and all kinds of other things to personalize things more or gauge somebody's aptitude for something. We're actually just discussing this in relation to our business as well, but like skill matrices for engineers so that we know who knows what and who can be trained up on what. Same thing with doing like personality tests because, lo and behold, not everybody's the same. And if you know how to communicate with them better, then you can actually get further ahead. Things like that. But yeah, Kids PLC Kids was inspired, and that's Allie's nonprofit. The website is not currently working. It's just low on our priority list to get the website up and running. It's kidsplckids.org is where you'll find it when it's up and running. But it was like I think Elena Day is, she was 9 years old when Allie sent her a PLC. And her dad is a master electrician and he, knows some of this stuff. So obviously she had to have, adult supervision and someone that was able to help her. But she programmed up a Allen Bradley PLC with connected components workbench and made it, shoot a pneumatically powered rocket in her room. And it was like cool, one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And that's why Allie started Kids PLC Kids, because she was like, you know what? If the kids have the willingness and aptitude and they have a willing adult instructor, this is entirely possible. And it doesn't have to be some sort of, Arduino kit for babies. It's great to start with all those kind of STEM toys, right? The kids have access to so much of that nowadays. It's crazy. But really, even with PLCs, like if kids can learn, to code in Python or whatever, I think there's nothing but exposure stopping them from learning. Even if you call it antiquated, right? Like learn ladder logic or whatever. It's not that hard. It's just not, there's nobody out there saying that, hey, this is cool to learn.
Well, it could bring that to life, right? I was fascinated with computers from an early age and I, learned how to write, pick a number between 1 and 10 games, right? And I remember some of my friends just could not see why that would be interesting. But if you can shoot a rocket off using, make some like physical thing happen, how much more engaging is that, right? And that was something that attracted me to this industry was I'm not just kind of writing programs and putting things together that just kind of move data around. People can actually see a process happening or affect how fast or slow that process is moving. And that is just so fascinating. So sure, yeah, why couldn't kids have something that, is relatively simple, but could really do something?
Yeah. And that's really what we'd love to see is more of the stuff that you actually will see in your career, but to see that earlier in school. Not, whatever you can I'm not going to crap on Chromebooks, because that's what they use in schools now. And I hear a lot of that, like, oh, well, kids can never learn real engineering because all they have is a Chromebook, which is a valid point. But like, of course, not every school district can afford an engineering computer, for every
No.
student. But I'm doing an interview at IMTS in a couple of weeks with the folks at PTC, and their CAD modeling. They have a CAD modeling software now that is cloud native, and it is used in industry, but it is also, you can run it in a browser on a Chromebook. So I think it's really it's our own constraints, like stopping us from getting this into the hands of kids. But that was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to that discussion, because like, what made them go, okay, let's build something cloud native from the start for an audience, for a customer that wants to use it in the cloud. From an inductive automation standpoint, you guys have been doing this for a while. A lot has changed in computing since you started.
Yes.
What have you seen change in terms of like customer preferences, or even your roadmap wise at Inductive, as the hardware considerations change and as the customers are becoming more open to potentially cloud? Do you guys just kind of give all the options, or is there a particular kind of method of delivery that you really suggest to your customers based on the on-prem versus other options?
We really try to make it all available, right? Because there are customers that are never going to allow data off-prem. That is never going to happen. Whereas there's other customers that it's going to give them so much, right, to allow this to be in the cloud. So we really do try to provide those options. One of the biggest things I've seen change is the distributed architectures. You don't have that one gateway connected to your, PLCs in this one site, right? So even if you're not allowing access into your PLC data, you can still aggregate this somewhere, right? So that could be your cloud solution. You can build these architectures together. So we're seeing a lot more interest in that for sure.
I think distributed architecture is also something we have to look at more closely as we have grapple with the cybersecurity implications of all of this, because we just can't say, okay, we'll just air gap it now and it'll be fine. No, we actually have to have this OT network, and it probably will get hacked at some point in time. So how do we mitigate the risk? How do we have OT specific cyber security incident response plans and redundancy and all kinds of things like that? So that in and of itself is like a whole new burgeoning industry, really. Not that it's brand new, but it's just becoming so more applicable to everyone, that if you're also in this industry and security and cybersecurity strikes a little bell with you, that is a huge growing opportunity in, operational OT cybersecurity. I don't think that you'll ever be wanting for a job if that's somewhere that you decide to jump into at this point. And functional safety even is another one that Linda Freeman from Rockwell, congratulations, Linda, if you're listening on your retirement, by the way. Another fantastic female role model in the industry, if you guys don't know her. She's a TUV certified functional safety engineer. And she was also saying that there's just a huge lack of those in the industry. So again, there's a lot of specializations and areas to industrial automation that you can, focus on, whether it's because it's interests you, or if you are one of those people that really thinks about, job security and your earning potential and all those kinds of things. Not all of the positions in industrial automation, I would say, pay better than other industries necessarily. So you kind of have to really like what you do, but there's tons of opportunities to maximize your earning potential in this industry. It just takes a little bit of looking at maybe what areas are hot, what locations, what industries. So I guess we're actually coming up on close to an hour here. And I know, Christine, unfortunately, you said your power went out? Let's just be real here. Christine had to drop off the episode for a little while, and Allie is currently dropped off for who knows what reason, connectivity or otherwise. But that's one of the fun things about having multiple people in a conversation. The conversation can move forward.
Being remote too. We're all across the country on this team. And that's another huge change in this industry. I mean, and for the entire world, really. We didn't hire people in other states, right? And we struggled. How are we going to get people to come to Folsom, California if they're saying, well, housing costs are less expensive where I am, or I have small children and my parents are a huge part of my childcare. And, my husband has a job here. We're not both going to leave. And we built this remote team and it really feels so seamless. I have Slack, I have Google Meet. I feel like I know Christine, even though I've only met her in person twice. And I feel that way about my entire team. And here she is getting knocked out by a storm. And if I go outside right now, the heat is going to hurt my skin, right? We're going to hit 100 today.
Yeah, I had a hurricane a few weeks ago, right before TSCATACon, where my power was out for a week, which stopped me not completely from working, but at the same time, so were physical workers in my area where the power was down. Like my brother-in-law works in a warehouse and a lot of their stuff wasn't working because there was no power. So remote teams, they've got, their pros and cons, but I think they are the way of the future, or hybrid, right? Partially remote. I know that's also one of the ways that Allie's been able to grow her team. Some positions have to be local or at least hybrid, but others, it kind of doesn't matter where you are. And that was the case for me. I've actually moved with this job. We've had a couple of our senior people move. And that's the nice part about it. If they have to move due to other life circumstances, they don't have to change their job. So I think that really helps.
I love this.
Yeah. And I had a little coffee chat. I also am on Slack, and I have a colleague in Poland, and she unexpectedly had to go pick up her son when we had a meeting scheduled. So she just pinged me. She says, "Hey, I'm going to be walking. If that's not a problem, come see my Polish neighborhood during our chat." And I love that. It was really nice. I got a little window into her world, and her world is a mom. And, I feel like I know her just as well, if not better, than many of the people that I've worked with in person for years. So I fully advocate for when you can, for the jobs that you can, why not cultivate remote teams? And I would say, the business that you guys are in lends itself to that very well. I've talked to quite a few inductive automation developers or people that work at systems integrators, and the fact that they work with, they can do a lot of the prep work ahead of time. They may go on site to go implement things, but that's not the majority of what they do. And they find that they get to do less travel working this way than with the legacy systems that they used to support. Is there anything, I guess this is I'll now that we're up at about an hour, I'll give you guys both the opportunity to plug whatever you want about inductive automation or Ignition at this point, including learn Ignition, because you can get more remote jobs in the industry this way. That's my plug for you guys.
Yeah, check us out on LinkedIn. Check out our website. We have case studies. You said what might attract people. I think seeing those case studies gives you a real view into what we could do in the industry. And if you are at all curious, go to Inductive University, start learning our software.
Yeah, it is free. So honestly, if you're interested in this industry and you're not taking advantage of at least getting started on the Inductive University, then maybe that's a sign to you that this industry isn't for you, because it does require a bit of a self-starter type of attitude. And those resources are readily available and free. So that'll be one of my number one things, that if anybody says, "Hey, I'm interested in this industry, how do I get started?" It's a no-brainer to point that one out. Christine, anything from your side?
My brain's kind of halted from working from that storm. Power kept flickering. I mean, welcome to Florida, I guess.
Is it crazy out right now? Or did it calm down?
Well, I mean, it's pouring, but that's the case every afternoon, honestly. I love that we're getting rain, though. I see that every day. But yeah, definitely echoing the sentiment that you guys have shared. If you are just even remotely interested in this field, even people who are I don't have any programming experience, I'm not a programmer, blah, blah, blah. I've had people who are succeeding in this field, designing HMIs and working with just SCADA in general, who were artists. So they were graphic artists, and they flourished because they are visual people, and just having an open mind of I'm not a technical person. It's okay. I mean, if you're interested, go ahead and, check Inductive University out, check other things out. The great thing about this industry is that you're not pigeonholed to, one specific thing of technology. there's so much to learn. There's so much to explore. I'm learning a lot every day. There's a lot for me to learn too. So, I mean, if you are curious, tap into that curiosity. And like you said, it does require a little bit of self-starter attitude if you are exploring this on your own. If you are employed and like your employer is saying like, check this out, maybe you should. You're getting
you're probably
but also like tap into the industry people too. Like I love it when people reach out to me or just like stop me at ICC and ask me questions about Ignition or just
okay. Because I was about to ask. That's kind of our last question. Is you can tell us what you have coming up that we should look forward to, if anything, and where can people follow you or reach out to you if they want to, either for business or in your case, I would say even like if they are interested coming from the computer science field into this industry, or if they're a woman in that area, or any of the things that you said during the episode today piqued their interest. Most of our guests are pretty open to connecting with other people in the community. So where can people find you? Where should they follow you?
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we will be at some local career fairs here in the area shortly, but that's California specific.
Yeah, LinkedIn for me, I can be a little slow at responding because there are some messages that come in that I'm like,
Yes.
who are you?
Yeah, don't
But
mind like asking for her to be your career coach. Also, like,
Also, I'm
listen,
overworking her.
I have to tell people, if you do want, that kind of valuable networking experience, particularly on LinkedIn, if you have not met a person before, you haven't added value to them in some way before. Like, did your power just go out again, or your lights?
We're lost here again. But my wife.
Oh, it's here. Wow. Yeah, so I guess we're about to head off here. So if you do drop off, stay safe. I hope your power's not out for a week like it was for me last time my power went out.
It'll be fine. I'll just drink rainwater and survive off of gators.
But yes, people, have a little common sense when you ask strangers for help as well. All of us are really, really willing to mentor and help people. But we are also all working way too much. We're all resource constrained. And we want to help you, but help yourself to let us help you, right? Don't come with a big ask right off the bat. Try to be helpful, try to establish some sort of relationship. Yeah. So we get this a lot in the DMs, and I don't want to I want to encourage people to reach out. But also, hey, I listened to you on the Automation Ladies episode, Christine. I loved what you said about, XYZ. I'd love to connect. That would probably get a response faster than something like, tell me how to get into the industry.
Like, give me a job.
Or that.
I don't have the power. But I am a natural born yapper. You could get me to yap, I will yap.
All right. So it probably doesn't take too many interactions of trying to add some value to Christine and then give her a stage. So ladies, with all of the technical difficulties that we've had today, in addition to the power outage and Wi-Fi outage, and now Allie's out, I think we did a fantastic job given our constraints. So I really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you at ICC again in person next year. I know it's sold out this year. But if you guys if somebody's listening and you're curious about ICC, they do sell virtual tickets. And you can join remotely for a pretty reasonable price. I would say you get to stream all the sessions. And then ICC content, I believe, is provided free about a year or half a year after the conference. So people can also check out recordings from last year's conference, I think, at this point, without having paid that fee. So lots and lots of different ways to get involved. And
lots of good information at no cost.
Yes. All right. Thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful day.